way that to get to your professional peak, you must invest in how to speak. Without further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Oudi.
Have you ever clapped at a speech? Not because you liked it, but because you liked that it was over. You have? Come on, don't leave her hanging. If you have, please stand up. If you ever clapped at a speech, okay. Have you ever given one of those speeches? Come on. If you've given a speech like that, please stand up. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm the only one. In fact, there was a time when I was considered to be an expert at giving those kind of speeches. That's right. I was so effective at being ineffective. Before I take you down my journey, not up a mountain, but I'm going to take you deep into the tunnel, the abyss of my speaking past. But before I do that, I just want to take a moment to congratulate you on the 75th anniversary. I want to thank you, John, for inviting me. Thank you guys for being accountants, because honestly, I've used you guys many a times. And I want to tell you that you're going to walk away tonight with at least 3 things. Number 1, you are going to understand the strong connection that exists between speaking and peaking professionally, not climbing mountains. I'll save that for now. Number 2, you're going to understand what ineffective communication truly costs you. Because I guarantee you that it costs you more than you think. And number 3, you're going to understand the number 1 cause of speaking hangups and what you can do to truly come out of your shell as a speaker, to truly come alive as a speaker. Does that sound interesting to anyone? We're in business. Let me take you to a very specific point in my speaking journey. I was 27 years old. I just opened my chiropractic clinic. I had a big head, if you know what I mean. My dad walks in. Son, I really like what you've done with the place. Thanks, Dad. But son, it's missing one thing. Now, let me tell you something. There's no way I missed anything. There's no way I overlooked a single thing. Let's see what he has to say though. This place is empty, son. It's missing patience! I'm thinking maybe what you might be thinking. Dad, you gotta give people time to find out about me. I'm new to the field. He said, son, that's your first mistake. You don't wait for people to find you. You go out there and you network and you speak. You speak anywhere. You speak everywhere. You speak there. I'm like, there? He's like, yo. Okay. So I went there and I spoke. Now let me ask you, what do you think a dream audience is for a terrible speaker? A very terrible speaker. The V had to come out. What is a dream audience for a terrible speaker?
Dumb audience.
Who is it?
You mean dumb audience?
No, like what kind of audience would be a dream for a terrible speaker? Okay.
No questions.
No questions, no interruptions.
No questions, no interruptions.
No interruptions.
No interruptions. Let me tell you guys something. It's going to blow your mind. I'll give you a hint. 1/3 of the audience I was speaking to was deaf. Another third were blind. And I'm not kidding when I tell you the rest were so heavily medicated, they didn't understand a word I was saying. Where was I speaking? Where was I speaking?
Blind.
Where?
The blind ones.
Mirror? In the mirror, in front of your mirror.
In the mirror? No, it's a real audience, real human beings.
Hopefully not here.
Huh?
Hopefully not here.
Not here. I was speaking at an old age home. Beechwood Retirement Residence in Mississauga, Canada, Ontario. When I got home that night, I was watching TV and I thought to myself, I got so lucky. Right? It was a flop presentation, but it literally, you know the phrase, it fell on deaf ears. It literally did. But I made a commitment to myself that I will never speak again. I don't want to talk about speaking. I don't want to think about speaking. There had to be another way to get to your peak as a professional. So I went to see Dr. Thomas Kalina, the first chiropractor who introduced me to the field. I said, Dr. Kalina, can I ask you a question? How did you build such an amazing practice? You're almost 70 years old and you're doing amazing. He said, Oudi, it's very simple. One thing. I said, what's that? He said, every week I do a spinal care class. How do you think I felt? To hear that he got there through speaking. So then I went to see another doctor. Actually, he was speaking. Dr. John DeMartini, he's probably the most famous chiropractor. He's been in the movie The Secret. And I heard him say that if you want to get to the top 1% of your industry, no matter your industry, speaking will get you there. Communication will get you there. Wait a second. It gets worse. Then he said, if you want to get to the top 1% of the 1%, I'll leave that to the accounts. I don't even know what the numbers are there. If you want to get to the top 1% of the 1%, not only do you want to speak in groups, but you want to speak effectively. It went from bad to worse for me because I started noticing that they were right. I started noticing that at any organization you go to, the higher up you go, the more effective the communicators become. Have you guys ever noticed that? If you go to Virgin and speak to the receptionist or the cashier, and then go to the manager, and then the media manager, then the global player, and then Sir Richard Branson, the communication gets more effective. Which means, if you want to get to your peak, you need to be investing in how you speak. If you want to get to your peak, you need to tweak how you speak. It's inescapable. My second presentation, I didn't get so lucky. And guess where I was speaking next? It has something to do with numbers. Where do you think I was speaking next? Who has the first guess? College? University? It has something to do with numbers. I was speaking at the bank. But let me tell you how it started. Can you think of a dream client that you have? An ideal client, someone who pays, refers, all that stuff? Yeah? Okay. So that was Mary for me. So Mary walked in, she had her treatment, and then she said, oh, you know what? Why don't you come speak at the bank? They love you. You teach me about pension, you've taught me about emotional management, and about posture, and about diet, and exercise and sleep. And how that it's so important that these things get you to your peak. Why don't you come speak at the bank? Mary looked like Susan Sarandon. She was always in a suit. And she was the kind of woman I couldn't say no to. Because she was a dream patient. Kept her appointments, paying on time. That's a good thing, right? Yeah. Referring people to me regularly. I said, with all confidence, I said, Mary, no problem. I got this. I was nervous inside, very, very nervous. But then I started thinking what you may have thought. What do I have to lose? I'm speaking for free. Right? Or maybe you thought, it's not even that far. It was literally across the street, so there's no time investment. Or maybe you thought, you know what? If I get just one client out of this opportunity, it'll be worth it. Which is really thinking small, I think. But anyways, I was thinking like that. I walked across the street, and the excitement that Mary wore on her face when I walked in turned to disappointment. Extreme disappointment on my way out. I let her down. I let her team down. I wasted their time. These guys and gals were switched on. They were fast processors, quick thinkers, go-getters. And it was a waste of time. I've always said, if you want to kill me, you don't need a gun. Put me in an audience with a boring speaker. I will happily self-destruct. Yet on that day, I was that speaker. What did it cost me though? You may want to write this down. It cost me the 6 C's of ineffective communication. Who has the first guess as to what the C is? At these two tables, who got the first guess? It cost me, what is the first C? Confidence. Who said that? Well done. It cost me confidence. You know why? Because I didn't want to speak ever again. Even though I said I would never speak ever again, and I did. I said I never want to speak ever again. Absolutely. Well done. Who has the next guess? Courage, yeah, similar to confidence, so we'll just put them together. Right? Great guess.
Chance. Respect.
Chance, respect. This is a good one. I'm just going to use a different word, but you're on the right track. It cost me credibility. Right, which is kind of similar to respect. Absolutely.
Fear.
What was it?
Fear of speaking again.
Yes, my confidence was rattled. It also cost me cash, which is the most obvious one, right?
Yeah, that's
why?
Clients.
And clients. Because Mary stopped paying and Mary stopped referring. It rattled my confidence. It also impacted my relationship with my colleagues. Why do you think? Do you think when they invited me to network and go speak, I would accept their invitations? My confidence was rattled, so I didn't go. Right? It also cost me the biggest of all, which is potentially my entire career. Guys, think about it. Has anyone heard of location being important in business?
Yeah.
Have you heard that phrase? Yeah? What is it?
In real estate.
In real estate, but even in business, right? If you have a good location, traffic going by, that's perfect. But guess what? I was right across the street, yet these bankers were literally driving right past me to go see someone else. And there was some health professional in the city driving right past me to go speak at the bank. Ineffective communication always costs you more than you think. And ineffective communication costs you even when you're speaking for free. And I learned that the hard way and the long way. That was back in 2001. But here's the crazy part, guys. There's two worlds to speak in. There's the outer world, which is the content in front of the speaker, right? Being structurally sound, being content rich, knowing how many points you want to make, how you want to start, how you want to end, all that stuff, right? But there's also the inner game of speaking, which is the confidence behind the speaker. I had an okay outer game. In fact, I was the expert in the room. Would you agree that a doctor talking to bankers, that the doctor knows more about healthcare than them? Just like if I was in the audience and you guys were talking accounting, you would be the expert in the room and I'd be listening, right? Okay. Here's the thing. I had my speech down pat. I knew my subject. I was the perceived expert, because when you stand up there, you are the perceived expert. But what I lacked was a strong inner game. And I want you to think about something. What is the point of a perfectly crafted speech if Obama's speechwriters wrote the speech for you if you don't have the confidence to deliver it? Right? That's like having a bird without wings. The message isn't going to reach. The message isn't going to touch their hearts and minds. So now my question to you is, I was afraid. I had speaking insecurities, speaking hangups, glossophobia, if you want to call it that, stage fright, and to make it simple, I was afraid. So my question to you now is, to make my third point, where do fears come from? Where do they come from? Who has the first guess? Yes?
Not preparation.
Say it one more time.
Going without the preparation.
Going without preparation. Okay? That's a really good guess. But you get people who are overly prepared, who practice 100,000 times, but when they get on stage, they still crumble like a cookie. Yes, what was your guess?
Thinking about failure.
Thinking about failure, absolutely. Thinking about the negative things that can happen, right? Well done. Thinking about what others will think about you. 100%, I believe the reason for speaking insecurities is because you're thinking of yourself. What were you going to say?
What others think about.
What others think of you?
Lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence. Okay, let's go to traditional psychology. You know what psychology will tell you? The biggest fear of all in life is the fear of the unknown. Please write this down and tell your kids and teach your kids about this. F-O-T-U. Please write it down. F-O-T-U. Fear of the unknown. And please write it down because I want to do an exercise and I'm going to show you like a magic trick with your pencil. Ready? Fear of the unknown. When you've written it down, please raise your hand. Just so I know when the majority is ready to roll. Okay. Now, think about this for a second. How can you be afraid of something you don't know? In order to generate a fear, you have to have substance in your mind. Right? Imagine, how many of you have teenagers? How many of you have someone at home between 13 and 19? One? Only? Two? Three? Okay, they're starting. The hands are starting to come up. It's like, I don't think about that. Do I really want to talk about him or her? Okay. Now let me tell you. If your teenager's happy, or if your teenager's sad, and you thought, let me see if there's anything inside that head of theirs. Let me crack very gently, crack open the skull, open it up like you open your hood of your car, and you look in. If they're happy, would you agree that they're happy for some reason? If they wore a big smile on their face and say, hey, what's going on? And they're going to say, I'm happy because I'm moving to Canada, and I'm going to university in Waterloo. Okay? If they're angry, you say, hey, what's going on? What's with the face? I'm angry because my sister said this, and my brother said this. Right? That, same with fear. That means you have to have content in your mind to generate a fear. I know you're thinking, what is the big deal? Why is he making this distinction? This is the distinction I want you to understand. If you believe fear comes from the unknown, there's nothing you can do. You can't even prepare. Because you're preparing for what? Something you don't know. It's a disempowering, antiquated, outdated concept, model that needs to be crumbled and crushed. There's a better model. I want you wrote down fear of the unknown, right? Yes. I want you to cross out the word un, or the letters U-N before no. Cross it out. And please, I want someone to stand up and read it to me now. Stand up, please, and just project your voice.
Fear of no.
Fear of the known. Thank you. See the little subtle distinction? That's what we're afraid of, guys. We're afraid of what we know. Now the question is, what do we know? The past. Just, I will have Q&A here too. Don't forget your question, okay? Because I want to hear it, I'm here too. Trust me, I can't wait for you to stop talking. We fear the past. Because we're afraid of the past, what? Repeating itself. What's that called? History? Repeating itself. That is what I call the mother of infinite fears. All these acquired fears we have about networking, about interacting with people, about getting on stage and speaking, all of that comes from not the mystery of tomorrow, but the history of yesterday. It's a slight shift, but it makes all the difference. Now I want to share with you a real story. I want to share you a story of a teenager, but I don't want you to think this is for teens. Because I've coached people in the UN, in the WHO, I've coached CEOs, group CEOs, high-level thinkers in the same way. But I want to show you a teen story because it's very powerful. I was invited to speak at the Young Leaders Development Program in Dubai probably 10 years ago now. I was sitting at a round table. There was about 100 people in the room or so. The organizer, the gentleman running the event, was a black belt karate teacher. Wow! His name is Sensei Mani. Don't mess with him. He said, he had a microphone. And he said, I want someone new to speak this time. The same people keep speaking. Dan? Would you speak? Yes. But that's not what Tamara said. There was a bunch of girls at the table, and they all did this, or looked away, covered their face with their hair. Like, no, not me. He said, please, if you don't speak, you'll never break your fear. What is this? Let's take a break. Did the mic drop. So I took a little opportunity to see if I could make a difference in their lives. So I walked over there, because I was speaking next. I walked over there and I said, do you mind if I try to help you with your, I know you didn't want to speak there. Can I try to help you? He said, yeah. I said, let me ask you a question. What are you afraid of? She's like, well, I trust me. We all have fears. Okay, tell me what you're afraid of. She said, I don't know, like, I'm afraid of, I don't know, I guess, something I don't know that's going to happen. Oh, you're saying you have fear of the unknown. I said, yeah, I have fear of the unknown. I said, but you can't actually have fear of the unknown. You can have fear of history repeating itself. You can't have history of something you don't know. She said, but, 1 second, I have a question. I've never spoken before to a group this big. How can I have fear of the unknown if, frankly, I've never spoken on stage or even in the audience in a room this big? I said, you don't have to be in the exact same situation to generate that fear. It just has to resemble it. It has to smell like it. I took her back. So first thing you got to do, guys, is what I call formulate a fear-based statement. You got to just be able to say, I'm afraid of speaking on stage. Okay? But then you got to drill deeper. If there's a fire in the basement, is there any point spraying water at the tip of Burj Khalifa? You're never going to put out a fire in the basement of that building, right? You got to put the fire where the water where the fire is. So we drilled deep. Guess what happened? She had an event in the past when she was in class. She raised her hand up and she spoke, and they laughed at her because of her broken English. Has anyone ever been there? Mostly for me it was my broken Arabic, but broken English, some of you? Okay. That was what we call her source incident. The reason for her fear was because because she was afraid of getting on stage or even just speaking from there and then laughing at her broken English again. That was it. It's that specific little thing. We rewrote her history, because if you rewrite your past, you rewrite what? Your future. We changed the story. It's a technique. I changed the story in her mind. And I said, how you doing now? She said, I'm good. So it was my chance to speak. So I got on stage. And I said, let me take this opportunity to invite someone up to speak. She didn't know I was doing this. I said, Tamara, would you like to come up and say a few words? You know what she did? Like this. Whatever, sure. Like no biggie, right? No big deal. She came on stage. She was the smallest girl in the group. She came up on stage. The sea parted before her. And everyone was looking like, how is this girl so brave, has courage? I have goosebumps right now. And she walked on stage. She owned the stage. The stage was as if it was her kitchen. She spoke with the same comfort, confidence, and certainty as if she was speaking to a loved one in her kitchen. I handed her the mic. And I said, say something. She said, what do you want me to say? I said, I don't know. Just talk about focus. She said, focus is, when you put your mind to something and you don't let anything distract you. Laser beam. I said, thank you, Tamara. And they clapped. They roared. Because the roar of the room matched the lioness inside her that came alive. She crushed her fear. She came alive. She came completely out of her shell and showed us her authentic self. Showed us a sliver of her soul. The fearless, immortal part of ourselves that doesn't give a rat's about what people think. She rose to the occasion. She rose to the occasion. And I'm telling you right now, it was beautiful. It was the most beautiful. We had people crying. It was the most beautiful thing. So, what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes and just think, I have an event coming next week. I got to speak. I'm speaking at the board meeting. I'm speaking at the family function. I'm speaking at the wedding. Just ask yourself, first, what am I afraid of? Don't be afraid to ask, what am I afraid of? Because that takes courage. Because it's true that you are afraid. Every day I coach people. I know that I'm known as the guy who tweaks backs for neck pain and back pain, but I actually tweak minds more than backs these days. I work very little as a chiropractor. Okay? But I help tweak people's thinking so they bring out that courageous lion in them. Okay? So think, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of speaking. Okay, but where's that coming from? Go deeper. I'm afraid of someone laughing at me. I'm afraid of not getting the words right. I'm afraid of freezing, stuttering, whatever it is. Write it down. That's step one. Step two, you gotta go back. Back. And find the source incident. Where is this coming from? When did I experience something similar before? Because that's what you're afraid of. You're afraid of running into yesterday. By the way, anyone who triggers you at work, any client who triggers you, I know there's a few clients who trigger you, right? Raise your hand if you have a client who triggers you. They don't look forward to meeting. Raise your hand, come on. Come on, there's more of it, come on. Clients who trigger, family who triggers you. Oh, even more there, okay. Children who trigger you. Okay? Guess what? It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with what they remind you of your past. Some of you might not like me today. And I'm completely okay with that because I might remind you of your distant, long-lost relative, friend, or guy from high school. You see? Which means you don't have to take this personally. This is the truth. I'm talking about the fear of speaking, but I help people with fear of pretty much anything in life. Now, once you find your source incident, now you got to try to rewrite your story. I know it's going to be difficult, but I want to let you know that there's a program I have that helps you win the war within. How many of you are interested in maybe learning more about this stuff? For you or for your kids? Okay. I only have 10 programs in the back to help you win the war within. And it doesn't just come with a 6-week program you can listen to. It comes with private coaching with me so I can find that source for you and help you crack it. Okay? Now I want to share with you something else. I want to let you know, I want you to taste what it sounds like when the strong inner game of speaking meets and matches the strong outer game of speaking. When the content and confidence merge. I'm going to walk you into an actual speech that a CEO, 5-time CEO of a hospital gave after I coached this speech. But before I do that, I'm going to do a review. So you guys can capture what I said today, okay? And before I do that, I want to open it up for questions. I want to thank you so much for being so patient with me. So we're going to give you the first question, okay? Go for it. Would you like a microphone, guys? Would it help?
You talk about the fear of the unknown. And when you talk about unknowns, there are things which we know that we don't know. And there are things which we don't know that we don't know. So when we think about the unknown, if we don't know that we don't know certain things, then definitely we'll be putting extra effort and trying to make sure that we know those things.
Right.
But when we don't know that we don't know certain things, there is no way we can prepare for such things. So probably when we say fear of the unknown, we are talking about that particular portion which we don't know that we don't know.
Yes.
So there is a slight distinction between that unknown. There is a two part to that unknown. So I just want to. It's a thought that suddenly came. That's what.
From the unknown. Just came.
Yeah, from the unknown it came. So
we know that to transform your life in any way, right, starts with being aware, because awareness precedes change. Now, once you know that you should know, but you still don't know what you should know, now we're talking about the role of the unconscious. And the truth is, in your past, you have some event that you are unaware of. But the beauty of it is the brain, a part of the brain called the hippocampus, stores it. It's actually stored. That's why anything you've experienced in your past that has caused emotions in you, positive or negative, like Beno, is Beno still here? Beno? Okay, I guarantee you if I say, Beno, give me the time when you were traumatized climbing a mountain, he's going to show me that picture again with his eyes covered. What was it called? The white blindness, snow blindness. Yeah. If I say, give me a moment when you climbed the greatest peak and you felt exhilarated and it was inspiring and maybe you cried because you never thought you could do it, but you did, he would remember it. It's stored indefinitely. He would remember the marathon he ran because it was so meaningful. He remembered promising his friend, even though he was in a different state of mind. So the good news for you is whatever you think you don't know is stored in your brain. Your brain knows. You just need the right questions to unlock it. Okay? The second thing is Oxford University has discovered, not only do you remember the negative aspects of being, shot down when you spoke in class, right? Like Tamara. Guess what else she remembers? Something called anti-memory. Anti-memory are the positive aspects of that experience. So you capture, like a puzzle, the negative pieces, called memory, and the positive pieces, called anti-memory. And once I complete your picture on it, you've rewritten your past. You can now hang it up as a masterpiece, as a beautiful puzzle on your wall, and then you can take a quantum leap forward. Because to move forward in life, and my next book, and we're doing a movie on it, it's called Fear Forward, is teaching people that to move forward in life starts by, like a slingshot, moving backwards. And then you propel forward. Hope I answered your question. Thank you very much. has the next question?
I have a question or
Yes.
answer.
Hi, thank you. I have a question about parenting actually. So what do you, when they grow up, they might have similar kind of issues. So what we can do better at these few things?
Oh my goodness. First of all, thank you so much for the question. That's Eddie. Thanks for coming in. Okay, in my book, I speak about a story when Eddie went to school in KG1. And I don't know why I woke up with a fist and a knot in my stomach on his first day of school. I didn't understand why. But guess what I realized? It came because of my experience being a new kid in the country, traveling from Lebanon, not speaking English, being afraid of this new culture, looking brown when everyone else is white, back in the 70s. I was afraid of him experiencing what I experienced. That's one. So we are afraid that our kids are going to run into the very thing we're avoiding. How many understand what I'm talking about? So you're projecting your fears on your children. Your kids might not have a care in the world, but you're afraid of it. And when you tense up, they tense up. I call this fear transmission. We can transmit fear like we can transmit a virus, if you believe in that, okay? We can transmit fear like we can transmit nervous energy. Fear is contagious, but not in the way you think. If you're walking down the street and you're holding your child's hand and you're afraid of dogs, why are you afraid of dogs? Because you had an experience in the past with a dog. In fact, I ran into a dog who was afraid of my dog. And she said, oh, Whitey was bitten before. See? Even the dog is afraid of running into the past. But if I'm walking my child and I see a dog, and I tense up, and I want to pull, what do you want to put your child behind you? You don't think they feel that? They don't have to be all the way behind you, but they feel when the tension is going this way, that you're afraid of experience. Then they think, maybe I should be afraid, Dad's afraid. Maybe I should be afraid, Mom's afraid. See what I mean? So the best thing you can do for your children is conquer your fears. Clear your fears. That's what, there's a video on YouTube, it reached I think 4 million views. It was a TED Talk from Tim Ferriss, and it was called Why Fear Setting Might Be More Important Than Goal Setting. Has anyone watched that? In my book, I have a chapter called Finding Your Fear Inventory. It's making a list of all the things you fear consciously that you're aware of, and unconsciously that you might not know that you have. Because once you've done that, then you turn your conscious and unconscious fears into masterpieces you can hang up. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I have one more question in the back. And then I'll do my review and wrap up, okay?
Hello doctor. So how long does it take to conquer the fear? So you explain the process, go deep down. What do you think from your experience? How long does it take?
Let me give you my super fastest case. A guy in the UK, 350-pound gentleman, has not been able to crack his weight problem. And I asked him, believe it or not, I start a lot of my even health questions this way. And I said, what are you afraid of if you lose weight? And he said, no one's ever asked me that before. And before that, by the way, his wife's a healer. He's been to many healers. And he's such a smooth talker and a fast talker that I almost missed it. I almost missed it. I thought maybe I shouldn't ask him this because he seems like he's got it all together. He said, that's a good deep question. No one's ever asked me that before. And he said, oh my God. We went back. He's afraid of being overpowered. And it started when he was 16 years old. When he was skinny, he used to get bullied. And he used used to bully. That's the interesting part. Because when he was fit, he was in fights a lot. He said people would see me on the bus and would point at me, all of a sudden want to fight me. And he said, oh, it's so weird that you discovered that, because even my goatee, I always called it my shield. And so we found that what I call the unconscious driver for weight gain. So he was 35 minutes. 35 minutes, he basically said to me, I'm so clear. My path from where I am now as a big guy to being what I call ideal weight, getting to ideal weight, he said I see a clear path getting there. So it can take as long as 30 minutes. With Tamara, at that age, there's not a lot of history, right? So it's easier. The younger you start, the easier it is. But the good news is that I'm going to take you now to a mountain analogy. Is that the good news is sometimes there's multiple source incidents. There's multiple incidents that are intense enough to register as a source. So you've got to clear multiple. But the good news is, like an avalanche, it only takes sometimes one piece of the mountain, one section of the mountain. When that collapses, it removes all the snow in front of it and pulls all the snow behind it. So sometimes when you deal with it, clear a very big, intense source incident, you end up clearing multiple memories in the process. So not only are you freeing it for your kids, you're freeing it for yourself. So typically, that's what the program that I'm offering today, with the War Within, which is a 6-week program to get you doing self-work. It also has 2 coaching sessions, 30 minutes each, because I know that that's plenty of time to either crack it or soften it. Thank you for your question. Yes, we have a question over here, guys?
It's fine, I can speak up.
Go ahead,
So
sir.
I think fear transmission is everywhere. It starts with your boss, your wife, your kids, your parents, your investors, everywhere. How do we insulate it from those?
How do
I insulate from those fear transmission?
My friend, you gotta clear your stuff. If you don't clear your fears, I had a guy that was trying to close a $6 million deal. And the guy that he's negotiating with, they want to take over his company, become partners of the company. Not take over, become partners, equity partners and stuff. He reminds him of a kid in high school. You can't connect. Look, anytime there's a high and a low, there's a disconnect. If you see that you're better than somebody, you look down on them. And when you look down on them, you feel a tension to want to make them more like you, and they feel the tension, and they resist to be more like themselves. If you subordinate and you're down, then you feel the tension to change and become more like them. Once you clear the stuff, then you can interact with the person before you, and it'll impact 3 areas: health, wealth, which includes business and career, and relationships. So your fears are literally causing health problems, because every health problem, I shouldn't say every, okay, the majority of health problems, a large majority, are due to missing information, which is also the cause of aging. And Carl Jung, one of the leading psychologists back in the day, said that missing information is the unconscious. The more you make the unconscious conscious, the more you become a fully conscious and aware human being. And your health problems that are trying to wake you up to your unconscious no longer need to be your feedback. Does that make sense? Just to elaborate a little bit on that, because it's powerful. If you guys have ever been to we have a buffet happening tonight? Yes. We have a buffet happening tonight? Yes. Okay, watch. I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking in the past, if you've ever been to a buffet and you thought to yourself, I shouldn't have another plate. Have you said that? No more. Like, that's enough, right? But then, somehow, the tummy just draws you to the buffet. Well, the first feedback you got was your intuition. Your mind was saying, no more. It was screaming to you. And then it starts whispering to you when you don't hear it. It starts as a scream. And then it whispers, but you don't hear it. If you don't hear the mind, what do you think kicks in next? The body. That's why you feel bloated, you gotta loosen your belt, can't get off the chair, start getting heartburn, indigestion, That's your body trying to wake you up to the unconscious part, which is the negative aspects of eating more that you're not aware of. And then if you don't listen to your body, people start to kick in. They'll say, you haven't another plate. People that normally wouldn't even stand up, you might even say. Because the universe is designed to try to keep you centered and aligned and true to yourself. So, like I said, the best thing you can do for your health, wealth, and relationships is to make yourself more of a fully conscious human being. Thank you. I want to do a quick review. Number one, it's inescapable. If you want to, whether you want to get to your peak or just go in the direction of peaking, you need to invest in your speaking. Number two, ineffective communication always costs more than you think, even when you're speaking for free. And number three, if you really want to become truly alive as a speaker, you got to rewrite your past and rewrite your future. But I want to end with the story that I promised you. Okay, this is my last one. Okay, is that right? I was hired to be a speech coach for a CEO of the hospitals here. He's a 5-time CEO in the U.S. of a hospital group. And I sat with him at Starbucks on Hamdan Street. You been there? Yes. Okay. I said, can I ask you a question? What exactly do you want me to do? He said, well, I want to inspire my team. I said, that's fantastic. What gets you up in the morning? If I may ask. And he kept calling me young man because he's a lot older than me. He said, young man, about 10 years ago, there was a patient that died under our care in the hospital. And it was our mistake. And I took it upon myself to tell the widow that, ma'am, I'm really sorry that your husband didn't make it and it was our fault. He said to me it was my toughest moment as a professional. Can you imagine? They're making a mistake in accounting, but this person's life was lost. And I said, oh my God, and he said, oh yeah, I don't ever want that mistake to repeat. I said, can I ask you something? What changed in the hospital as a result of that? He said, well, that's an interesting question, young man. You know, we changed the way we do medicine. Because instead of having one doctor go in and give an injection, we now have a co-pilot system in place so that there's someone making sure everything's done right. I said, wow, that's amazing. But I'm curious, did that save any lives? Did that prevent any deaths? And he paused. And he said, countless. At that point, I knew I had his speech. I could smell the coffee in Starbucks. I could hear the AC for the first time. Because I know that he was now in his heart, in his authentic self. And I said, what happened to the doctor who gave the injection and caused this lady to be a widow? He said, oh wow. He went on. I had to fire him. But he went on to put this into place, this co-pilot system in place, across hospitals in the U.S. I said, did that prevent deaths? He said, Oudi, I can't count. So I asked him what you might be thinking right now. I said, is it a mistake? I'm not going to tell you what he said, but I'm going to invite you into his speech. Because this is one of the few times that I had a chance to sit in the front row after I coached someone and see them deliver live. I won't read the whole story, but he walked up and he said, 10 years ago, there was a patient that died under our care. And I took it upon myself. You know that story? Right? And he said, I had to tell a widow, and it was my darkest moment. It was very difficult. But then I sat with a friend. We had coffee. And he made me aware of my unconscious. He made me aware of all the lives that were potentially saved and how we change medicine. And I'll leave you with this. I want his message to be your message. Because here's how he ended his speech. He said, I don't want you to wake up afraid of making a mistake. I want you to wake up inspired to make a difference. Thank you.
and it has given a lot of food for thought. I'm sure all of us today we are going to go back and try to identify our fears, and I hope everybody starts working towards that. Thank you once again. To present the memento, I request CA Neeraj Vitoria.